Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming together to immerse ourselves in this rich body of wisdom, which we both receive and add to and pass along. And we are in the concluding portion. It's actually a double portion of the book of Leviticus. We are in Parshat Behar-Bechukotai, and we will read through the English translation of our portion. Then I'll share with you a focus study about it, and then we'll have our collaborative conversation about it. So we're going to begin at the Book of Leviticus with chapter 25. And if at this moment you'd like to unmute and say our blessing, giving thanks for the opportunity of studying together and being together, we can say our blessing. Baruch
Baruch
Adonai
atah Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
melech
haolam
haolam
asher
asher
kidshanu
kidshanu
mitzvotav
b'mitzvotav
v'tzivanu
v'tzivanu
la'asok
la'asok
b'divrei
b'divrei
Torah.
Torah. Amen.
Thank you, God, for the opportunity to immerse ourselves in words and deeds and relationships of Torah. So we will read through the entirety of our portion first, and then I'll share with you a study about it, and then we'll have our collective conversation about it. I will share with you the opening verses, and then I'll give others an opportunity, if they'd like to read as well. So once again, we're in the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, beginning with verse 1. God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of God. 6 years you may sow your field, and 6 years you may prune your vineyard and gather in the yield. But in the 7th year, the land shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, a Sabbath of Adonai. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest or gather the grapes of your untrimmed vines. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. But you may eat whatever the land during its Sabbath will produce, you, your male and female slaves, the hired and bound laborers who live with you, and your cattle and the beasts in your land may eat all its yield. Richard, would you like to read a little bit starting with verse 8?
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. You shall count off 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of years gives you a total of 49 years. Then you shall sound the horn loud in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, the day of atonement. You shall have the horn sounded throughout your land, and you shall hallow the 50th year. You shall proclaim release throughout the land for all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you shall return to his holding, and each of you shall return to his family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow, neither shall you reap the aftergrowth of harvest, the untrimmed vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You may only eat the growth direct from the field.
Thank you, Richard. And around the table here in Portland, I call upon Steve or Sherry. Would you like to read a little bit starting at verse 13?
Thank you. In this year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to his holding. When you sell property to your neighbor or buy from any of your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. In buying from your neighbor, you shall deduct only for the number of years since the Jubilee. And in selling to you, he shall charge you only for the remaining crop years. The more such years, the higher the price you pay. The fewer such years, the lower price, for what he is selling you is a number of harvests. Do not wrong one another, but fear your God, for I, the Lord, am your God. You shall observe my laws and faithfully keep my rules, that you may live upon the land in security. The land shall yield its fruit, and you shall eat your fill, and you shall live upon it in security. And you shall ask, what are we to eat in the 7th year, if we may neither sow nor gather in your crops? I will ordain my blessing for you in the 6th year, so that it shall yield a crop sufficient for 3 years. When you sow in the 8th year, you shall still be eating old grain of that crop. You will be eating the old until the 9th year, until the crops come in. But the land must not be sold beyond reclaim, for the land is mine. You are but strangers resident with me. Throughout the land that you hold, you must provide for the redemption of the land.
And Steve, would you like to continue there at verse 25?
Sure. Thank you. If your kinsman is in straits and has to sell part of his holdings, his nearest redeemer shall come and redeem what his kinsman has sold. If a man has no one to redeem for him, but proposes and acquires enough to redeem with, he shall compute the years since his sale, refund the difference to the man to whom he sold it, and return to his holding. If he lacks sufficient means to recover it, what he sold shall remain with the purchaser until the Jubilee. In the Jubilee year, it shall be released, and he shall return to his holding.
Thank you, Steve. Let me invite Mark Thompson if you'd like to continue at verse 29.
Thank you, Rabbi. Bear with me while I move to the next screen. All right. When a man sells a residential house inside a walled city, its redemption may take place only until the end of the year of its sale. Thus, its period of redemption is 1 full year. If it is not redeemed by the end of a complete year since its sale, that house in the walled city will remain permanently the property of the person who purchased it throughout his generations. It will not leave his possession in the Jubilee year. Houses in open cities that do not have a surrounding wall are to be considered as the field of the land. Such houses must be allowed their redemption. The house will leave the purchaser's possession in the Jubilee year. Regarding the cities of the Levites will have unlimited rights of redemption, both of the houses of their cities and of their landed property. If someone purchases property from the Levites, the purchased house or inherited city will leave the possession of the purchaser in the Jubilee year, because the houses of the cities of the Levites are their sole inherited property amid the Israelites. A field surrounding the open areas of the Levites' cities cannot be sold, because it is the Levites' eternal inheritance. If your brother Israelite is becoming destitute, you must support him as soon as his hand, i.e., his financial power, begins to falter beside you, so that he can continue to live with you in financial solvency, even if he be a convert or a resident alien. You must not take interest from him. You must fear your God, enable your brother Israelite to live with you in financial solvency. You must not give him your money in the condition of being paid back with interest. You must not give him your food on the condition of being paid back with interest. I am God, your God, who took you out of Egypt in order to give you Canaan, in order to be a God to you.
Thank you so much. Margot, would you like to read a little bit? We're at verse 39.
Thank you. If your kinsman under you continue in straits, you must give him over to you, and not subject him to the treatment of a slave. He shall remain with you as a hired or bound laborer. He shall serve with you only until the Jubilee year. Then he and his children with him shall be free of your authority. He shall go back to his family and return to his ancestral holdings. For they are my servants, whom I freed from the land of Egypt. they may not give themselves over into servitude. You shall not rule over him ruthlessly. You shall fear your God. So, such males and female slaves that as you may have, if it is from nations around you and about you, and that you may acquire male and female slaves, you may also buy them from among the children of alien residents among you, or from their families that are among you, whom they begot in your land. These shall become your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property for all time. Such you may treat as slaves. But as for your Israelite kinsmen, no one shall rule ruthlessly over them.
Thank you. Thank you, Margot. Let me invite Mark Levinstein if you'd like to continue at verse 47.
Thank you, Rabbi. A resident alien among you has prospered, and your kinsman being in straits, come under his authority and gives himself over to the resident alien among you, or to an offshoot of the alien's family. He shall have the right of redemption even after he has given himself over. One of his kinsmen shall redeem him, or his uncle or his uncle's son shall redeem him, or any one of his family who is of his own flesh shall redeem him. Or if he prospers, he may redeem himself. He shall compute with his purchaser the total from the year he gave himself over to him until the Jubilee year. The price of his sale shall be applied to the number of years as though it were for a term as a hired laborer under the other's authority. If many years remain, he shall pay back for his redemption in proportion to his purchase price. And if few years remain until the Jubilee year, he shall so compute. He shall make payment for his redemption according to the years involved. He shall be under his authority as a laborer hired by the year. He shall not rule ruthlessly over him in your sight. If he has not been redeemed in any of those ways, he and his children with him shall go free in the Jubilee year. For it is to me that the Israelites are servants. They are my servants, whom I freed from the land of Egypt. I, the Lord, am your God.
Thank you so much, Mark. Jim, would you like to continue? We're at the very start of chapter 26.
Thank you, Rabbi. You shall not make idols for yourselves or set up for yourselves carved images or pillars, or place figured stones in your land to worship upon. For I, Adonai, your God, you shall keep my Sabbaths and venerate my sanctuary. Mine, the gods, that the earth shall yield its produce and the trees of the field their fruit. Your threshing shall overtake the vintage, and your vintage shall overtake the sowing. You shall eat your fill of bread and dwell securely in your land. I will grant peace in the land, and you shall lie down, untroubled by anyone. I will give the land respite from vicious beasts, and no sword shall cross your land. You shall give chase to your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. 5 of you shall give chase to 100, and 100 of you shall give chase to 10,000. Your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. I will look with favor upon you and make you fertile and multiply you, and I will maintain my covenant with you. You shall eat old grain long stored, and you shall have to clear out the old to make room for the new. I will establish my abode in your midst, and I will not spurn you. I will be ever present in your midst. I will be your God, and you shall be my people. I, Adonai, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, of the Egyptians, to be their slaves no more, who broke the bars of your yoke and made you walk erect.
Thank you so much. Norm, would you like to continue at verse 14?
Thank you. But if you do not obey me and do not observe all these commandments, if you reject my laws and spurn my rules, so that you do not observe all my commandments and you break my covenant, I in turn will do this to you. I will wreak misery upon you, consumption and fever, which cause your eyes to pine and the body to languish. You shall sow your seed to no purpose, for your enemies shall eat it. I shall set my face against you, and you shall be routed by your enemies, and your foes shall dominate you. You shall flee, though none pursue. And if, for all that, you do not obey me, I will go on to discipline you sevenfold for your sins, and I will break your proud glory. I will make your skies like iron and your earth like copper, so that your strength shall be spent to no purpose. Your land shall not yield produce, nor shall the trees of the land yield their fruit. And if you remain hostile toward me and refuse to obey me, I will go on smiting you sevenfold for your sins. I will loose wild beasts upon you, and they shall bereave you of your children and wipe out your cattle. They shall decimate you, and your road shall be deserted. And if these things fail to discipline you for me, and you remain hostile to me, I too will remain hostile to you. I in turn will smite you sevenfold for your sins. I will bring a sword against you to wreak vengeance for your covenant. And if you withdraw into your cities, I will send pestilence among you, and you will be delivered into enemy hands. I will break your staff of bread. 10 women shall bake your bread in a single oven, and they shall dole out your bread by weight, and though you eat, you will not be satisfied.
Thank you so much, Norm. Dave Lieb, would you like to continue at verse 27?
Sure. But if, despite this, you disobey me and remain hostile to me, I will act against you in a wrathful hostility. I, for my part, will discipline you sevenfold for your sins. You shall eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. I will destroy your cult places and cut down your incense stands, and I will heap your carcass upon your lifeless fetishes. I will spurn you. I will lay your cities in ruin and make your sanctuaries desolate, and I will not savor your pleasing odors. I will make the land desolate so that your enemies who settle in it shall be appalled by it. And you and I will scatter among the nations, and I will unsheath the sword against you. Your land shall become desolation, and your cities a ruin. Then shall the land make up for its Sabbath years throughout the time that it is desolate, and you are in the land of your enemies. Then shall the land rest and make up for its Sabbath years. Throughout the time that is desolate, you shall observe the rest that it did not observe in your Sabbath years while you were dwelling upon it. As for those of you who survive, I will cast faintness into their hearts in the land of their enemies. The sound of a driven leaf shall put them to flight. Fleeing as though from the sword, they shall fall, though no one pursues. With no one pursuing, they shall stumble over one another as before at the sword. You shall not be able to stand your ground before your enemies, but shall perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies shall consume you.
Thank you, Dave. Let me invite Susan and David, if you'd like to continue at verse 39.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Those of you who survive shall be heartsick over their iniquity in the land of your enemies. More, they shall be heartsick over the iniquities of their forebears. And they shall confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their forebears, in that they trespassed against me. Yea, were hostile to me. When I in turn have been hostile to them, have removed them into the land of their enemies, then at last shall their obdurate heart humble itself, and they shall atone for their iniquity. Then will I remember my covenant with Jacob. I will remember also my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land. Go ahead.
And the land will be left from them, and it will accept its Sabbaths while it is devastated from them. And they will accept their crime because and only because they rejected my judgments and their soul scorned my laws. And even despite this, when they were in their enemies' land, and I did not reject them and did not scorn them to finish them, to break my covenant with them, because I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, their God. So I shall remember for them the covenant of the first ones, whom I brought out from the land of Egypt before the eyes of the nations, to be God to them. I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. These are the laws and the judgments and the instructions that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh gave between him and the children of Israel on Mount Sinai by Moses' hand.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Catherine, would you like to read a little bit at the very start of chapter 27?
Thank you, Rabbi. So the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when anyone explicitly vows to Adonai the equivalent for a human being, the following scale shall apply. If it is a male from 20 to 60 years of age, the equivalent is 50 shekels of silver by the sanctuary weight. If it is a female, the equivalent is 30 shekels. If the age is from 5 years to 20 years, the equivalent is 20 shekels for a male and 10 shekels for a female. If the age is from 1 month to 5 years, the equivalent for a male is 5 shekels of silver, and the equivalent for a female is 3 shekels of silver. If the age is 60 years or over, the equivalent is 15 shekels in the case of a male and 10 shekels for a female. But if one cannot afford the equivalent, he shall be presented before the priest, and the priest shall assess him. The priest shall assess him according to what the vower can afford.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. Let me invite Robert. Would you like to read a little bit starting at verse 9?
Yes, thank you. And if it be a beast whereof men bring an offering unto the Lord, all that any man giveth of such unto the Lord shall be holy. He shall not alter it nor change it, a good for a bad or a bad for a good. And he shall at all and if he shall at all change beast for beast, then it and the exchange thereof shall be holy. And if it be any unclean beast, of which they do not offer a sacrifice unto the Lord, then he shall present the beast before the priest, and the priest shall value it, whether it be good or bad, as thou valuest it, who art the priest, so shall it be. But if he will at all redeem it, then he shall add a fifth part thereof unto any estimation. And when a man shall sanctify his house to be holy unto the Lord, then the priest shall estimate it, whether it be good or bad, as the priest shall estimate it, so shall it stand. And if he that sanctified it will redeem his house, then he shall add the fifth part of the money of thy estimation unto it, and it shall be his. And if a man shall sanctify unto the Lord some part of a field of his possession, then thy estimation shall be according to the seed thereof, an homer of barley seed shall be valued at 50 shekels of silver. If he sanctify his field from the year of Jubilee, according to thy estimation, it shall stand. But if he sanctify his field after the Jubilee, then the priest shall reckon unto him the money according to the years that remain, even unto the year of the Jubilee, and it shall be abated from thy estimation. And if he that sanctified the field will in any wise redeem it, then he shall add the fifth part of the money of thy estimation unto it, and it shall be assured to him. And if he will not redeem the field, or if he have sold the field to another man, it shall not be redeemed any more. But the field, when it goeth out in the Jubilee, shall be holy unto the Lord, as a field devoted. The possession thereof shall be the priest's.
Oh, thank you so much, Robert. And then we invite Linda and Justin, if you'd like to read a little bit, starting at verse 22.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
22. And if he consecrates to the Lord a field that he had acquired that is not part of his inherited property, the Kohen shall calculate for him the amount of the valuation until the Jubilee year, and he shall give the valuation on that day, holy to the Lord. In the Jubilee year, the field shall return to the one from whom he bought it, namely, the one whose inherited land it was. Every valuation shall be made according to the holy shekel, whereby 1 shekel is the equivalent to 20 gerahs. However, a firstborn animal that must be sacrificed as a firstborn to the Lord, no man may consecrate it, whether it be an ox or sheep, it belongs to the Lord. Now, if someone consecrates an unclean animal, he may redeem it by paying the valuation, and he shall add its fifth to it. And if it is not redeemed, it shall be sold for the valuation price. However, anything that a man devotes to the Lord from any of his property, whether a person, an animal, or part of his inherited field, shall not be sold, nor shall it be redeemed, for all devoted things are holy of holies to the Lord.
Any devoting of a person who has been devoted need not be redeemed, for he is to be put to death. Any tithe of the land, whether it be from the seed of the land or the fruit of the tree, it is the Lord's. It is holy to the Lord. And if a man redeems some of his tithe, he shall add its fifth to it. Any tithe of cattle or flock of all that pass under the rod, the 10th shall be holy to the Lord. He shall not inspect a tithed animal for a good or bad one, nor shall he offer a substitute for it. And if he does replace it, then both that one and its replacement are holy. It cannot be redeemed. These are the commandments that the Lord commanded Moses to tell the children of Israel on Mount Sinai.
Thank you both so much, and thank you, everyone. That's our entire Torah portion for the week. And since it concludes a book of Torah, we have an opportunity to say a special prayer of appreciation and of renewal. If you'd like to join me in it, feel free to do so. It is Hazak, Hazak, Beni Hazeh. Be strong, be strong, and we shall be strengthened. Thank you so much, everyone. Let me share with you a little bit about what I was observing and seeing this year when I was reading our Torah portion, and then I'll open it up and invite you to share with me what you saw, what you experienced, and what you felt during this reading. So if you have a copy of the study sheet, I invite you to take it out. And here we are, we're at the end of the book of Leviticus. This is the culmination of this rather, for many of us, a rather strange book, which has been filled with language about these offerings of animals and grains and these sacrificial services. It's a lot of language about bodies and bodies that have eruptions on them, bodies that have fluids leaking out of them, a lot of discussion about what makes someone pure and impure, even eruptions on buildings and on fabrics. And so to many of us, it seems rather strange and foreign and distant from our daily lives. So what are we to make of this rather strange journey that we've been through, this book of Leviticus? Well, I'd like to focus a little bit about, in chapter 26, this notion about blessings and curses, It stated that there would be blessings if we are to do something. These blessings are profound. They reach to the very essence of what it means to be human. They express that we will have a sense of material fulfillment, that we'll have a sense of peace, that we'll have a sense of no anxiety, that nothing will disturb us. And then there are all these curses that are listed there, all these terrible things that will befall us if we don't live in a certain way. So I'd like to just explore that a little bit by looking at the Hebrew itself. And if you want, you can turn back to chapter 26. And I also have the language I'm going to explore on the study sheet. So this section of our Torah portion, our double Torah portion, and Bahar, says, Im Bechukotai telechu. So my translation had that as if you follow my laws. And I want to point out that the Hebrew there, the verb that's used is telechu, which is from the verb to walk. So one more literal translation might be, if you walk in my ways. Okay, so we have this notion about not so much following, but or obeying, but walking. So there's this sense of movement, of physicality, and of proceeding along the way. And then the translation continues, if you follow my laws and faithfully observe my commandments and do them. So the word here that's translated in my edition as observe is tishmaru, which comes from the Hebrew verb to hear. So another way to perhaps more literally translate that would be, if you listen to, if you are attentive to, if you are tuned to. So this notion about now not so much obeying and following, but more about walking and being in tune with, which for me conveys a different feeling than the more legalistic approach about following a law. And here in later in chapter 26, we have this language at verse 27 that in my edition gets translated this way. But if, despite this, you disobey me and remain hostile to me. So again, I look at the Hebrew, and the word that is translated in my edition as disobey, the Hebrew is lo tishmeu, which again, tishmeu comes from the verb to hear. So a more literal translation is, if you are not attentive to, if you do not listen to, if you are not attuned to. Okay? And then we conclude that verse with, and if you remain hostile to me. And I looked at this, it's a very interesting word here that gets translated as hostile, bekiri. So I have down here in the Hebrew, the root of that word that gets translated in my edition as hostile, and it's from the verb kara, which means to encounter, to meet, or befall. And from that we get the noun kare, which means a chance or accident. And then we get another noun, kuri, which means contrariness. So another way to think about it, and the way I'm experiencing it this year, is a translation would be more like, if despite this you are not attuned to my ways, to me, and you are unmindful, and you walk with me unmindfully, or perhaps if you walk with me contrarily, then these things will happen. So for me, it evokes a different sense of being, kind of living a life that is full of inattention, of being out of attunement with the the rhythms of nature, then things will happen that are not healthy. Things will be frustrating. Things will be discordant with the natural flows and rhythms of life. So here is this notion then is what is this whole book of Leviticus really all about? And this year, I experienced it this way. I experienced that the lesson of the book of Leviticus actually was revealed at the very beginning of the book of Leviticus. I return now to that which is on the sheet here, number 3, from chapter 1 of verse 2, which is translated, when any of you presents an offering to God. Now, this is the opening to this book, which then proceeds to describe all these sacrificial rites and rituals which the priests are to perform, which are to for the benefit of the well-being of individuals and to the community as a whole. So it looks like it is talking about this the function of how to bring certain kinds of material offerings, cattle or lamb or grain. And we have the Rabbi Shneur Zalman points out that there's another way of understanding this, that rather than understanding what it is talking about merely on the external material level, that very verse is also talking about something that is internal and spiritual. So here in number 4 is his understanding. He wrote, each of us has 2 souls, the godly soul and the animal soul, nefesh ha-bechemat. The essential purpose of our lives is to enable the godly soul to prevail over the tendencies of the animal soul. Even the animal soul shares in the love of God. And then he quotes from the verse, when a human being from among you will bring, and he points out that the syntax of that sentence itself reveals something. He says, the syntax reveals a deeper meaning. When a human being will bring from among you, and what is the offering we are to bring? It is from our animal soul. So he points out that the Hebrew syntax is indicating that when someone brings something from themselves, so rather than understanding it as meaning that when you bring something that you own from your herd, he's saying you are offering up something that is of you, something of you. And for him, he understands that to mean in the context of offering up a beast, he says, what you're offering up is the beast aspect of yourself. So I don't know how many of you are fans of Johnny Cash. Yes, me too. Okay. But Johnny Cash sang a song that was written by his son-in-law, Nick Lowe, called The Beast in Me. And let me just share with you the first 2 verses from that song. The beast in me is caged by frail and fragile bars, restless by day, and by night rants and rages at the stars. God help the beast in me.
Okay. Yeah, I took him home today. I'll talk to you.
Let me just start that again. The beast in me is caged by frail and fragile bars, restless by day and by night rants and rages at the stars. God help the beast in me. The beast in me has had to learn to live with pain and how to shelter from the rain, and in the twinkling of an eye might have to be restrained. God help the beast in me. I don't know a lot about Nick Lowe's personal life, but Johnny Cash's personal life was pretty well out in the open and broadcast. I mean, he was a man who had a lot of destructive habits and a lot of destructive personality traits. He struggled with alcoholism and addiction. And when you hear Johnny Cash singing that song, you know he's been living the struggle and not just singing a song. And in a sense, Nick Lowe's song, especially as it's sung by Johnny Cash, is really telling us and feeling for us what Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi was just describing. That our struggle here on this earth is to, if you will, offer up the beast side of us so that the divine and holy side of us can be more prevalent in our lives. So if this is what this whole book has been about, then what is the promise that is being made? So here in number 5 is what the promise is. It's beautiful language from chapter 26. I will give peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and none will make you afraid. And I will cause evil beasts to cease to exist from the land. The rabbis read this verse and they said, what does that mean? Cause evil beasts to cease to exist in the land. And one rabbi said, well, it's pretty clear. It means exactly what it said. All those evil beasts are going to be gone. They'll be eliminated. And another rabbi said, I don't think that's exactly what it means. So here is in Midrash what this conversation is about. Rabbi Yehuda explains that the verb hishbati, to cease to exist, means that God will cause these evil beasts to disappear. However, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai interprets that only the evil of the beasts will cease from the land. The beasts themselves will not be destroyed. Rabbi Shimon says, what better shows the greatness of the Almighty when there are no dangerous animals, or when the animals exist but they pose no threat? The answer is the latter, as it is written, and a wolf will lie down with a lamb, and a lion will lie with a calf. So this, if one follows what Rabbi Shneur Zalman is sharing with us from the 18th century, what these Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai from the 2nd century is sharing with us, then what the message of the book of Leviticus is pointing us towards is not so much or merely this external set of rites and rituals having to do with the bringing forward of actual animals. It is actually a retraining of ourselves so that we can expunge from ourselves those destructive traits, those traits that get in the way of our own happiness and of creating a happier and more peaceful world. Well, this notion about finding in the ending of a work like the book of Leviticus, the beginning itself, that something is looping back at the ending, back to the beginning, is a fascinating notion. And there's a wonderful, wonderful writer who died far too young, a man named John O'Donohue, who's an Irish poet, an author. He was an ordained Catholic priest, and he was a strong advocate for Celtic culture. And he wrote a book called To Bless the Space Between Us, a book of blessings. And he wrote this: a beginning is ultimately an invitation to open toward the gifts and growth that are stored up for us. To refuse to begin can be an act of great self-neglect. Our very life here depends directly on continuous acts of beginning. John O'Donohue wrote a lot about the notion of coming home. And what he meant by coming home is that we have always carried within us the destination that we seek. And that is through acts of meditation and discernment and reflection and working on ourselves that we get home. And here is a poem he wrote called For a New Beginning. In out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. So here we are at the end of the book of Leviticus. And the ending of the book of Leviticus takes us back to the very beginning. But it required a journey through this book to get back to that beginning. And in a sense, what I've experienced this year studying this portion is that journey is really a description of what the whole Jewish Bible is all about. It's about a journey of getting back to where we started. We started, if you will, in this land of paradise, but we didn't know how to live in it. We were so full of either ourselves, our ego, our sense of willfulness, our contrariness. We didn't know how to be here. And so the whole book of the whole Jewish Bible is this series of ongoing journeys of exile and return and exile and return. And each time, hopefully, we're learning something more. And then we get to the very end of the Jewish Bible, the second book of Chronicles, where the Jewish people are once again are in exile, this time historically in the Empire of Persia. And the Emperor of Persia says, I'm going to let you go now. You no longer need to live in exile. You can go back to your land and rebuild your temple. And fascinatingly, the second book of Chronicles, the ending of the Jewish Bible, has no response coming from the people. They don't say, yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. There's silence. And in that sense, the silence represents Torah's understanding that this is an ongoing journey that each of us has to go on. And there's no ending to this book called the Jewish Bible because we're living it right now. And we each get a choice. What do we want to say to the emperor? Do we want to say, I'm afraid to go back? Or I kind of like it here? Or are we going to say, I understand in order to fulfill myself, I need to go back home. And like John Donahue says, hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm where your soul senses the world that awaits you. And so I dedicate the title of this week's study to what John O'Donohue reminds us, that we have to live continuous acts of new beginnings. So with that, I'd love to know what you experienced, what you thought, you felt, what provoked you, what inspired you, what frightened you, what made you happy about this week's portion. Justin, please, and Linda, and then Catherine, yeah.
Rabbi, thank you so much for your careful handling, I think, of the profound material that's present here in its depth, in its startling archetypal form. And I wanted to present a little bit of comparative art work and a real religious experience that I have with the text of this, understanding that Behar is an image of the wholeness of the mandala of Jewish life. And the closest example that I have to begin with to share, no, it won't come in, is it's the Tibetan wheel of life, which is ruled in fact by death. So you have that's a sixfold wheel, and that has the God realms and the human realms and so forth. They go through the six, but Moses sees a mandala at the top of Behar, and so that sense of the circularity is profound at that moment. The circularity of Jewish life being dedicated at a point, basically, you could say everything that has been said by the time you get to Bahar. And so it's a really profoundly worked out spirit. Now, again, immediately in the nature of Jewish religion is Bechukotai, is really, then the Tochecha comes with a fierceness. And I can't share the image of it with you, but I mean, I really, every time I hear the Tochecha, and particularly in a sense, not to soft focus the lines that are saying, look, you will eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters, you will eat. I will demolish your edifices and cut down your sun idols. I will make your corpses fall on the corpses of your idols, and my spirit will reject. I mean, just understanding the bellowing, that this is the bellowing of the patriarchal God. And there is an actual response, and it's just as destructive in the matriarchal God matrix, particularly in the religion of Kali and Durga. And she responds to the bellowing of this Tokeka. She literally responds to it. She says, roar if you must. We will laugh at you. We'll laugh in the face of the very roaring of the Tokeka. And that, I assure you, is a religious experience. Respectfully offered.
Thank you. So, what you inspired me to do, Justin, is to turn to the painting that I shared on the study sheet, which I didn't write about in the weekly written commentary because there was just so much material there. But I just want to what you inspired me to do is to go back to it. So the artist, first of all, Julia Meyerowitz Katz, it's not primarily a professional artist. She's a Jungian analyst, okay? Uh, and she did a series called Diaspora Winds. So when I think of diaspora winds, I think of people being scattered. Okay. And perhaps one can look at this painting and see that sense of motion that's happening there. And she named this particular work of art Joy in Spite of Everything. Somehow she has found a way, even in this moment of scattering, which we all experience, to find the joy. And here's the interesting thing. I don't know a lot about Jungian approach, but what I do understand is this, is that it is trying to deal with two different tensions, if you will. One is the collective unconscious, that what we experience is we are in touch with something that everyone is in touch with, that we live through archetypes, as you mentioned, that are cross-cultural, if you will. But the Jungian analyst is also seeking to help someone individuate themselves in their uniqueness. So that there's that lovely, wonderful tension between the universal and the particular, but between the cross-cultural and the highly unique. So I just want to share that as an additive to what you're sharing with us and bringing in the mandala. We have so much to learn from one another's spiritual journeys and practices. So thank you so much, Justin. Thank you. So let me call upon Catherine. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure how to follow that, but I was sort of struck in this parshat by this sort of mirroring image of God and humans. In that Adonai says, if you follow my laws, this is what I will do for you. And if you do not listen, if you do not heed, this is what I will do. And I'm wondering, in that moment of destruction, is God being godly, or is he embodying human animal soul?
Wow.
In his response?
Wow. So, this whole book of Leviticus is about Korban, which is translated as the offering. But that word is built upon the Hebrew verb to bring close. So this whole book, while some of us may find it irrelevant and a relic of an entirely different time, embedded in it is this notion of a desire to be close, that sense of intimacy, that sense of sharing space and heart with one another. And we've talked about the book of Leviticus as being a book of love, essentially. If one reads it with the feeling with which it was composed as a work of art, that the feeling is to be close. And that's captured in some of the language that we read tonight, where the translator rendered, for some reason or other, this language this way. If you disobey me and remain hostile to me. And when one looks at the Hebrew, it is more like it would be rendered this way. But if despite this, you're not hearing me, and you walk with me in a contrary way. So this notion, first of all, about hearing and walking with conveys a sense of relationship and intimacy and companionship that I think some of the ritualistic and legalistic language, especially as it appears in the English translation, doesn't really get at the heart of what this book is all about. So I love your suggestion that there's some attempts here to create a kind of empathetic and resonantial. I just made up that word, but there's a resonance back and forth between divine and human. So thank you, Catherine. Beautiful. I've got Richard here and then Robert. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is bringing me back to when the brothers came down and saw their little brother, and he went to him. And you pointed out that it wasn't about walking over to him, it was about entering his framework. And I think now, with what the existential situation is in the world now, today, this very day, and the business of it's calling upon us, this portion is calling upon us to recognize the beast within us and not allow it into the argument, into the political, but to focus on, as you say, intimacy with whatever side of the river or ever side of the polar separation is, to struggle to not get in, as the ego or as the beast, but surrender that and learn to transcend that to create true society, true democracy, true whatever it is. The next thought is for me that, well, this whole deal of material world, it's not going to get any better. We may string it out for a while, but when it comes time to make the journey, will we have expelled enough of our beast to have a smile and move into the next stage? That's what my thoughts are.
Yeah. Richard, so this is very compelling what we just said. Thank you so much. And what I thought of was this, is that so much of Torah is trying to address these inherent feelings of fear and anxiety that we have living in the world as individual human beings, isolated as we are. And it's trying to help us overcome and that kind of fear and anxiety. And that's indeed what the promise is in the end of this book of Leviticus.
Yes.
That if you live this way, you won't live a life of fear and anxiety.
I'm wanting to add that in doing so, it's not just about getting rid of your anxiety. It's about acting in such a way that vibration takes hold in people who are having more trouble than we're having.
Yeah. So exactly. So, there's an article in today's paper about how much of our daily life is determined by our assessment of what team someone is on, what political team someone is on. And that will determine for us the nature of our relationship with what they're offering. Okay. And we are living now in a period where there is such an extraordinary degree of incuriosity about the other. And we are in these dimensions of self-protection, which sometimes gets expressed as either withdrawal or gets expressed as outright hostility, and it's all based upon not a knowledge of the other, but a refusal to know the other. Okay. And I think that's in part what you're reminding me of is that this is all a book about trying to overcome and maintain an ongoing sense of curiosity and journey and avoid the stagnation that can happen when we habituate ourselves in certain ways and when we refuse to break beyond our own curiosity about the other. And I have to say, I'll say one more thing, and then I want to share with other people. As being the diasporic person, what the Jew has always been, we became the ultimate globalist because we were forced to do so. But it is also this teaching, I think, that causes us to transcend often enough the sense of the particular in order to have an ongoing curiosity about everything. The Talmud itself is a book that is a book of curiosity about every aspect of life and trying to understand how one can encounter and make every aspect of life sanctified. So it is, rather than a constraining text, it is a text full of interest and curiosity and exploration. And I think that has been kind of the driving force for the Jewish people that has enabled us, in spite of everything, to be so resilient. So let me call upon Robert and then David and Susan. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for a lovely evening. This started about 25 minutes after sunset, my time. And with sunset for me is the beginning of a holy day. So it's a very nice way for me to start the holy day being with people that I care for, even though I've only met Mark in person. I think the conversation begs this question, and that is, what is the nature of God? If we ascribe human qualities to God, he's not God. He's simply a higher level. Again, I'm only going to express what I understand. He's simply a higher level of our own selves. So when we talk about ascribing evil to God, if that is the case, then evil is legitimate within our own selves. And I don't think any one of us agrees to that. The reason this came to mind is number 5, because I wanted to put it in perspective from my understanding. I will give peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid, and I will cause evil beasts. Now, this was addressed earlier. If God is only good, and if his grace may appear harsh, even cruel, it doesn't mean we can understand what his reality is, or what his bounty, or what his grace is. If he is only good, there is no beast that's evil except us, because there is no beast that has free will. We're the only ones that have free will, and we have the ability to be more bestial than any animal that exists. So you mentioned the lion and the lamb. We go on YouTube, you can see a lion nursing a young deer, protecting it. They're the most incredible things. One of the things that was mentioned was the idea that things will never be beyond a certain point. And yet, the promise of every religion, and just go to Isaiah, there is a promise in all the scriptures that there will be a time of peace, but it's on us. It's not what some of my evangelical friends think, well, it's just going to come down from heaven. No, we have to work for it for thousands and hundreds more years besides all the thousands behind us. This is my understanding. And to give you an idea of how bestial we can be, there was I don't see it here, and I don't have it on my phone. I use my phone, by the way, to read. There was something about eating your sons and your daughters. This happened in Ukraine. The Nazis did it to the women, maybe even the men. And by the way, you should know, in Nazi Germany, the Baha'is were put in prison camps because people who love Jews and love humanity were not their friends. So what I'm trying to say is that for me, the vision of God is so magnificent. And if we recognize there is no evil in that, and we can't understand his grace and his bounty, we can't understand why human evolution is slow, long, arduous, painful. But if we believe he's only good, then he only deserves praise. This is my understanding. And this point, and I think it was brought out earlier very nicely, it's inside. Our saint and our saintliness and our demonic nature is only inside. Because if God is only good, all he created is good. And by the way, if we take out the top predators in any environment, the whole ecosystem falls apart. So it has to be a spiritual meaning, and I think it was addressed very well. But I wanted to walk it backwards to the concept of God. Because if we don't have a concept of God that is so edifying that we're willing to live or die for it, we'll always have some angst in our heart. And that's just my humble take.
Thank you so much, Robert, for your beautiful and humble expressions about not only the nature that exists outside of us, but also about the nature that exists within us as part of our spiritual DNA, if you will. And it reminds me that this week I was reading an interesting article that came out of an Orthodox Jewish seminary. And it was about what exactly is a blessing. What does it mean that we say, "Blessed are you, God"? What does that mean to say, "Blessed is God"? And this the rabbi said, well, the nature of a blessing really means to magnify the presence of the divine in this world. And I thought, oh, that's very nice. I said, well, how do you do that? And then I realized, oh, well, that I guess that is up to us. So that we are the vehicles, the instruments for magnifying the divine in this world. And how do we do that? We do that, as this portion just pointed out, that we do that by being mindful, by being in tune with, and then by recognizing the obstacles inside of us that get in the way of our own happiness and the happiness of the world. So thank you. What a rich set of comments. Thank you, Robert. And let me call upon David, Susan. Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. So this is an extremely meaningful Torah portion to me. And it makes me aware. I feel like the Torah portion helps to make me aware of the beast within myself. And that even though I may address it and say, oh, I need to work on that, you need to keep going back because it's not an end. It's always a beginning. And you need to go back because the beast doesn't necessarily go away. You're just kind of correcting it. And also, by doing that and acknowledging that, you're helping others to recognize the beast in them too.
Nice.
And ways that you can guide the beast.
Nice. Thank you, Sue. And thank you for taking this material to deep heart of yourself. That always enriches the text that is what is before us, and not just in this book, but the text of the lives that are before us. So thank you so much for that. And David, is there something that you wanted to share?
No.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Then let me go back to Justin. Yeah.
Rabbi, thank you so much. And again, to me, it's profoundly religious material. Just acknowledging, I mean, again, faced by the beast of our fundamentalisms that can get constellated here, I still go back to the saying of the mother, that it's really Mother Kali, right, who's saying, in this, I will throw your corpses on the corpses of your dead idols. And the idol is the concept of divinity. That's the real idol here. Not those idols of wood, stone, and steel, but our concept of divinity. And she will throw us on the corpses of our idols, our conceptual idols. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. And Sherry here. Yeah.
There's just a number of things that I was going through my mind. One thing is you mentioned just in passing globalist, and that just just caused me to just pause to describe Jews as globalists, because to me it has always been in an anti-Semitic context that I've heard the term globalist, and wow, it just blew me away. So I'm wondering if you can help me understand what you were getting at.
Well, first of all, embedded in all of our literature, in the early rabbinic literature, first of all, is this sense of there was no aspect of life about which the rabbis did not have some degree of curiosity and wonder. So that's one thing. The other is that historically, what happened to the Jewish people is, because we were dispersed, but we maintain this degree of community across the globe through Jewish communities. And so other communities of people relied upon the Jewish people for trade purposes, because if you lived in Madrid, you were likely to know someone who lived in Ankara. And so you could help some merchant or banker or whatever say, well, I've got these goods I want to sell. Well, happen to know someone who lives in Ankara and I can make an arrangement for it. And so the Jewish people became integral in terms of developing those lines of trade and so forth. So, I mean, so there's that historical social aspect to it, as well as just the cultural aspect of living a life of curiosity. So, do you want to say something more, although I'm going to begin to cohere our time together?
I just wanted to say a little bit on that topic, and that is, it reminds me of Stalin's description of the Jews in the Soviet Union as being rootless cosmopolitans, meaning they weren't real Russians. And then which is, an anti-Semitic trope in various pieces of language, but I ran into something I was reading today that called us the first Europeans because we were the first to culturally identify with all of Europe.
Yeah, there was, I mean, it was in some sense, it was forced upon us because no nation really wanted us to be part of their nation. And we were refused to own land, we refused entry into occupations and so forth. And so we had something that was national, if you will. And that conveys that sense of being cosmopolitan and global as well.
And we competed with the Knights of the Templar. Also had banks in every city around the Mediterranean.
Right. Yeah, and Malta as well. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Steve.
Like as a globalist, the Pope divided the whole world between Portugal and Spain.
Mhm.
Isn't that globalist? There wasn't anything left.
Okay.
It's like, it's like as a Jew, you can't win. I mean, every path was closed. So we made paths where there were no paths. And then we were turned around and condemned because we were creative enough to make paths. And it's just, it's like a theater of the absurd. But the other thing I was thinking of, there's just so much I wanted to just to ask about. Also the concept of an evil beast. I'm an animal rights activist. Steve and I are that way. I mean, we spent 40 years in Washington, D.C. advocating for animals. Okay, so to me, evil and beast in the same sentence is profoundly upsetting, and I don't agree with it. And the other thought I had was, you mentioned Lewis Carroll. So I have a book, a huge tome of Lewis Carroll's annotated Alice in Wonderland. The thing is, I don't know, 500 pages. And I started flipping through it on the way over here, and I started to bring this heavy tome with me. I was thinking you would be interested to look at it. It made me think about the story of Beauty and the Beast. And I have had another book at one time about Beauty and the Beast, and about how the beast was really pure, and how the beautiful woman actually in the story was more flawed, and it was the beast that was more godlike, if that is the word. I mean, there are different translations of Beauty and the Beast, and I was thinking, anyway, there are just so many things in me that I wanted just to ask you about. I noticed you did not have. I like Johnny Cash. don't know that much about him, but you talked about a song called "The Beast in Me," and that the song was written by his son-in-law, Nick Lowe. That's fascinating. I mean, tell me how you ended up with that. And
Well, I mean, I've heard Johnny Cash sing the song "The Beast in Me." It's just tremulous and awe-inspiring as the way I experience it. And then when I explored, well, where did this song come from? It came from an English musician, Nick Lowe, who was his son-in-law, and so that's how I discovered that. But I'm enriched by your being enriched by all this material and the number of things that it sparked in you, and you're bringing forth Beauty and the Beast that adds a whole nother level to it, and how with inside the beast there. That's what Shlomo Zalman was saying. He says even the beast soul loves God. And so there is that character, the beast, who has a beautiful soul, just waiting for someone who can help magnify that presence in the world. So let me cohere our time together by reciting this verse from T.S. Eliot's poem Little Gidding.
Mhm.
We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. This notion that T.S. Eliot shares with us, that if we live a life of searching, and here in particular, he's talking about a spiritual search, a desire to magnify the divine that is within us, that if we live that kind of life, then we get back to who we have always been, pure expressions of the divine. And our priest and poet, John O'Donohue, who reminds us that this is not a one-time deal. You don't get to some place and then you're done and you have a revelation and your life is fine after that. It's a series of ongoing discoveries of endings and beginnings. It is we need to live lives of continuous acts of beginning. So when I combine the two, and I think about this nature of exploration, in particular within the Jewish context, is best done in community, so that we don't become isolated in our own preconceptions and pre unnecessary conclusions, but that we're always being inspired by those around us to explore further. I'm so grateful to be part with all of you in that ongoing exploration that invites and inspires continuous acts of beginning. Thank you all so much. I'm so grateful for your presence and your participation. I love you all. God bless you all. Look forward to our next gathering. Be well, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.